Welcome back to New England Living. I'm Rachel Holt. Up next, Michaela Johnson heads to York, Maine for a look at what goes into creating the ultimate surfing experience with founder of Grain Surfboards, Mike LaVecchia.
Mike, we are standing in front of some beautiful works of art here in your showroom at Grain Surfboards. Do you draw inspiration from where you're located, being so close to the water and being in New England, tapping into the history, the nautical vibes?
Yeah, we definitely, Maine is a big part of who we are. You know, we lived here before we built surfboards. There's a big surfing culture in Maine, but part of the reason we build boards the way we do is because there are resources here in Maine that work really well for what we do. So a lot of our boards, most of them are built out of northern white cedar, which is a type of wood that grows up in northern Maine and New England in general. So it's a beautiful wood that's great to work with. It's a big part of what we do.
They're gorgeous, and they're also great for the environment.
Yeah, I mean, anything you make is not necessarily a plus for the environment, but we do try to build things that have as little impact as possible. So the wood is all sustainably grown, it's local. We've used the same mill in northern Maine since we started. So it's a small family-owned mill. We don't use any foam in our surfboards. Most surfboards are made out of foam these days. So we try to stay away from as many chemicals as possible. So our boards are hollow, so they're just full of air. Right now they are glassed and sealed with like a bio-based epoxy. So it's kind of the best epoxy resin out there at this point. But we're always working with companies to try to improve those processes too.
Always thinking it through each step. Speaking of steps, can you walk us through the process of how these boards go from that sustainable wood that you mentioned into riding a wave?
Yeah, I mean, so there is a big mix of kind of technology and tradition, I guess, in our process. So there's a lot of different things going on in over the length of the board that affect the way a board rides. So if somebody's surfing pipeline in Hawaii or if they're surfing long sands here in York, it's a very different type of surfboard. Understanding kind of where they like to surf, how they surf, what type of waves they like to be on, that's like the first step. We do a lot of work behind the scenes in different CAD programs to design our boards. And then we take that model in the computer and start to break it down to create the inside. So you're going from a 3D model that you can spin around to the inside kind of guts of the board, if you will. In order to keep the boards as light as we can, you remove as much material as you can from that frame without sacrificing strength. So the CNC will go through and cut all those lightning holes and then finally cut the outlines of all the frames. And then once we're ready to start building the board, it's very traditional. We use clamps and hand tools, as few power tools as possible. It's always been important to us to be able to do as much work as we can with simple tools. And that's partly because it's more fun, it's enjoyable, it's quiet. Instead of making dust, we're making wood curls that you can sweep up and throw in the wood stove. And the simpler we can make it, the better. That's always been a big goal. There's a shaping process and then a little bit of sanding. We brand the boards with our logo, and then the boards go into the glassing room. You know, our boards really only have to be fiberglass to just seal them, make sure there's nowhere for water to go. And then install the hardware, and then, yeah, that's it. They're ready to go.
But it's nice to put your extra personal touch on each one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so each board is kind of built, shaped, and glassed by the same person all the way through, which is a little bit unusual. Most big surfboard factories, they have somebody who is the shaper and somebody's a laminator. But for us, generally speaking, when you start a board, you kind of see it all the way through. So you've kind of invested in the board. You're making sure that every little detail is exactly right. And that's harder to do when you're kind of passing it off to different people throughout the process. So at the end, before the board's going to glass, one person will sign the board with their name and the date, or if there's customer wants a little message burned into it, we do that. It's a very rewarding process.
There's a lot of thought that goes behind the process of making these boards. There's also a lot of thought behind the waste or lack thereof.
Yeah, there is for sure. And we kind of have the saying, waste no waste. So we'll try to find a use for everything that is a byproduct. So we kind of go to extremes to find ways to kind of use all the offcuts. All of our mill machines are hooked up to one big central dust collection, and cedar dust is great for animal bedding. So that all gets saved and bagged up and sent to local farms. We'll kind of find ways to use most of the offcuts of our process.
You mentioned even the little shavings on the bench. Throw those in the wood stove.
Yeah, we heat our shop in the winter with wood, so it's great. Every morning we sweep up the floor, throw it in there, and it's great kindling.
Your workshop is a very special place. What is it like to not only work with your hands, but to work with these great, rich materials?
Each board that we build is truly one of a kind. You know, you're never gonna find the same piece of wood. That's one of the things I think people really enjoy about our products is the board they have, there's no other one like it. Being a hand-shaped board, everyone is a little different. I think a big thing for us is knowing, you know, these boards are built to surf. They're not built to just be beautiful and hang on the wall. We truly want to build boards that are functional, that can be everyday boards, but can be a great alternative to modern day materials, kind of the industry norm. So we're always trying to blend that concept of hand-built, local materials, you know, environmentally friendly, but still are strong and light and performance-oriented.
What do you love most about Grain Surfboards? What do you love most about your job?
I think the best thing for me is just the continual evolution and pushing of ideas. You know, we're all really motivated and driven by the experience of surfing, the experience of building boards, the experience of, you know, kind of sharing and meeting people from all over the place. So continuing to push the ideas and push us in new directions and hopefully find better ways to do things. I think that's my favorite part of this.